Ethiopian Bible mentions Jesus. After all, the Ethiopian Bible is a Christian Bible. It contains the Gospels. It upholds the life, death, and resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ.
For thousands of years, the Ethiopian Bible sat apart from the rest of the world. It is longer, older, and contains ancient texts that were removed from every other version of Scripture centuries ago, and no one ever fully explained why. Scholars had studied it for decades, but its full depth had never been tested against a modern mind. Then a group of researchers fed the entire text into Grok AI, every chapter, every passage, every book. The system processed it all. And when the decoded results came back, they were terrified. What the AI had found buried inside those ancient pages did not just challenge what scholars thought they knew about God. It made some of them question everything they had built their lives on. So what exactly did Grok find that Christians have been missing? Join us as we delve into the details of this analysis. The removed books of the Bible. The Bible known in Ethiopia follows a path that feels very different from what many people have known for years. It carries a wider collection of sacred writings, with a total of 81 books. This number goes far beyond the 66 books found in the Protestant tradition. Within those extra writings are entire texts that much of the Christian world has never explored or even seen. These books were not added later as an experiment. They came from a long and steady tradition that grew deep roots in a particular place and held on through time. Ethiopia stands as one of the oldest homes of Christianity that has continued without a break. Long before many parts of Europe fully embraced the faith, a powerful kingdom in East Africa had already made it official. This happened in the ancient kingdom of Aksum, located in what is now northern Ethiopia. Around the year 330 AD, King Ezana declared Christianity as the state religion. This moment shaped the spiritual direction of the region, placing Ethiopia among the earliest nations to follow this path openly. The roots of this faith go even deeper into early Christian history. In the New Testament book of Acts, there is a record of an Ethiopian eunuch who encountered the message of Christianity and accepted it. He was baptized by Philip, one of the early followers of Jesus. This encounter is often seen as the beginning of a long line of belief that continued in Ethiopia without interruption. Over time, this line of faith grew stronger, passing from one generation to the next without major division or reform movements that reshaped doctrine in other parts of the world. While other regions experienced changes like the Reformation and Counter-Reformation, Ethiopia's Christian tradition remained fixed. It developed in its own way, holding on to teachings and texts that others chose to remove or leave behind. During the process of forming the biblical canon in Western Christianity, certain writings were set aside. In Ethiopia, many of those same writings were kept, copied, and studied. This created a unique body of Scripture that reflects a much older stage of Christian thought. Among these preserved texts are the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, along with 3 books known as the Maccabean writings, which are not the same as those found in Catholic tradition. These texts were not seen as strange or outside the faith in their early days. They played an important role in shaping ideas within Jewish and early Christian communities. Over time, they were removed from most Western traditions, but they continued to live on in Ethiopia. The Book of Enoch holds a special place among these writings. Scholars have studied it closely and found that it influenced key ideas that later appeared in the New Testament. Concepts about the Messiah, the Son of Man, and the resurrection can be traced back to themes found in this ancient text. It also deals with the end of the world and what comes after, ideas that became central in Christian teaching. Even within the New Testament itself, the influence of this book can be seen clearly, especially in the Epistle of Jude, where parts of Enoch are reflected in a direct manner. Meanwhile, far away from busy cities, high in the mountains of the Tigray region, there is a monastery that guards a piece of this long history. The Abba Garima Monastery sits at a high altitude, surrounded by rough land and quiet space. Inside this place, monks have protected two ancient gospel books for many centuries. For a long time, these books were believed to have been created around the 11th century. That belief changed when scientific testing revealed a much older origin. In 2010, radiocarbon dating carried out by researchers from Oxford University showed that these manuscripts were produced between 330 AD and 650 AD. This discovery placed them among the oldest known illustrated Christian manuscripts in existence. They are even older than the well-known Rabula Gospels from Syria. This finding changed how historians understood the development of early Christian art and writing, showing that Ethiopia played a much larger role than many had once believed. The physical form of these books adds to their importance. They are thick and heavy, bound with materials like wood and copper. The pages are made from animal skin, carefully prepared and preserved over time. The text is written in an ancient language called Ge'ez, which is no longer widely spoken. Surprisingly, the illustrations inside the books remain bright and clear, with strong colors that have survived for more than 1,000 years. These features show the high level of skill and care that went into their creation. Over the centuries, these manuscripts have faced many dangers. The region has gone through periods of conflict, including invasions and foreign occupation. There was also a fire in the 1930s that destroyed parts of the monastery. Through all of this, the books survived. The monks protected them by hiding them when necessary and keeping them safe from harm. Their effort allowed these works to continue existing long after many other ancient texts were lost. Further study by experts helped confirm the age and origin of these manuscripts. Researchers like Jacques Mercier and Judith Mackenzie examined both the materials and the artistic style. Their findings show that the books were not imported from another region, but were created in Ethiopia itself. This pointed to the existence of a strong local tradition of writing and painting during the time of the Aksumite kingdom, proof that Ethiopia was not only preserving knowledge, but also producing it. This tradition developed separately from major centers like Rome and Constantinople. It followed its own path, shaped by local culture and early influences. The texts within this tradition reflect a version of Christianity that grew in its own direction without being fully shaped by later changes in Europe. When modern analysis tools began to examine these writings, they revealed patterns and ideas that unveiled new ways of understanding early Christian thought. And now, something deeper that has been waiting inside those pages is being noticed. Resurrection Secrets, the Last 40 Days. The story of the resurrection is often told in a short and familiar way. It moves quickly from the death of Jesus to the empty tomb, then to his appearances, and finally to his return to heaven. This version feels complete, but it leaves out a long stretch of time that holds deeper meaning. There is a period after the resurrection that lasted many days, yet it receives very little attention in most teachings. That missing space carries details that were not fully recorded in widely known texts. In the book of Acts, there is a clear mention of a 40-day period after the resurrection. During this time, Jesus remained with his followers and continued to teach them. This was not a brief moment or a single appearance. It stretched across several weeks, giving room for extended guidance and deeper instruction. The disciples were not left in confusion. In fact, they were given time to learn, to listen, and to understand things that had not been explained before. Despite the importance of this period, the main biblical texts offer only limited information about what was taught. There are short mentions and general ideas, but no detailed record of the lessons that were shared. This creates a gap between the event and the understanding of it. Many readers move past this section without realizing how much is missing from the written account. The space remains, but the content within it is not fully visible in the common version of the Bible. When a deeper comparison was made between different biblical traditions, a clear difference began to show. The Ethiopian tradition includes additional writings that are not found in the Western canon. Among these are texts connected to early church teachings and collections of ancient rules and instructions. These writings are believed to hold material that reflects what may have been shared during that 40-day period. They present ideas that go beyond the short summaries found in Western Bibles. Within these writings are teachings about life after death and the condition of the soul. They describe how the soul moves and exists beyond the physical body. There are also explanations about the structure of the spiritual world, including levels or spaces that exist beyond human sight. These ideas are not presented in a vague or shallow way. Rather, they are detailed and connected to a larger system of belief that focuses on spiritual understanding rather than external control. Another part of these teachings involves access to God without the need for strong institutional control. The focus is placed on direct connection rather than layers of authority. This kind of message would have created tension in times when church power was growing and becoming more organized. In the 4th and 5th centuries, structures of authority were being formed, and teachings that reduced the need for those structures would not have been easy to accept or preserve in every tradition. In the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, the 40-day period after the resurrection holds a central place. It is marked as a key part of the spiritual calendar, especially with the celebration of the Ascension, which takes place on the 40th day after Easter. The liturgical texts used in this tradition describe those days as a time when important spiritual truths were revealed. These include ideas about agreement between God and humanity and the order of the early church. Teachings that are seen as part of a foundation rather than an addition. When these texts were examined with modern tools, their content showed strong links to early forms of Christian thought. The ideas did not appear random or disconnected. Instead, they aligned with themes that were present in the earliest stages of the faith. In some cases, they showed closer similarity to those early ideas than later developments found in Western traditions. This created interest among researchers who study the growth of religious belief over time. The structure of the teachings also stood out. They reflected a form of belief that focused more on inner experience than on organized systems. The connection between the individual and the spiritual world was placed at the center. This approach shaped how the teachings were understood and passed down. It gave the tradition a different tone compared to systems that relied heavily on hierarchy and formal authority. The Book of Enoch plays a major role in this wider structure. In many parts of the world, it is not included in the Bible and is treated as an old text with historical value. In Ethiopia, it remains part of Scripture and continues to influence belief. This text offers one of the earliest detailed views of what happens after death, presenting a structured vision of the unseen world. It describes a journey beyond life, where souls move to specific places based on their condition. These places are shown as separated spaces, each with a different state. Scholars have studied this text and found that it contains early ideas about resurrection. These ideas appeared before similar concepts were fully developed in other parts of Jewish writing. Over time, these themes became part of Christian belief, especially in teachings about the return to life and the final judgment. The connection between these ideas and later writings shows a path of influence that stretches across centuries. When both the Ethiopian texts and the Book of Enoch were studied together, patterns began to appear. These patterns followed a form where themes were presented and then reflected in reverse order. This type of structure is known in literary study and shows careful design. What made this finding unusual was that the same patterns appeared across different texts written in different times. The matching of these structures suggested a deeper link between the writings. It showed that the ideas were not placed randomly but followed a shared design. This created the sense that later texts may have been shaped with earlier ones in mind. The connection carried a level of precision that pointed to deliberate development over time. The effect of this discovery changed how some researchers viewed the relationship between early and later writings. It suggested that certain texts were not just influenced by earlier ideas, but were built around them. This added a new layer to the study of religious texts and how they were formed, while bringing attention back to writings that had been left out of many traditions. And with it came something inevitable: skepticism. Ancient patterns revealed, doubts began to grow as more people looked at the results from modern analysis tools. Some experts explained that systems like Grok do not understand meaning in the same way human researchers do. These systems work by studying patterns in language, linking words and phrases based on how often they appear together. Because of this, certain structures may seem special when they are actually common in ancient writing styles. Texts from early Semitic traditions often followed repeated patterns, and this could lead a machine to highlight designs that were never meant to carry deeper meanings. Scholars who have spent years studying ancient manuscripts shared similar concerns. Careful work on early Ethiopian gospel texts showed how complex these writings already were without the need for added interpretation. Experts like Dr. Michael Wexler, who studied the Ethiopic version of the Gospel of John using the Jerima manuscripts, warned against placing too much weight on computer-based findings. He pointed out that what appears as a hidden structure could simply reflect the normal style used by writers of that time. Even with these concerns, the discussion did not end there. The focus began to shift from how the patterns were found to why they appeared in certain texts and not in others. Attention moved toward the books that were removed or left out during the formation of the Western biblical canon. In the 4th and 5th centuries, church leaders met in places like Hippo and Carthage to decide which writings would be included. These gatherings shaped the structure of the Bible used in many parts of the world today. During this process, several important texts were excluded. The Book of Enoch did not make it to the final list. The Book of Jubilees was also left aside. The Maccabean writings found in the Ethiopian tradition, which differ greatly from the Greek versions, were never included. Teachings connected to the 40 days after the resurrection were reduced to very brief mentions. These decisions created a narrower collection of texts that became standard in Western Christianity. In contrast, the Ethiopian church followed a different path. It developed separately from the centers of power in Rome and Constantinople. Without the same pressures or influences, it preserved writings that others had set aside. Its biblical tradition grew from older sources, including the Greek Septuagint, which held readings that were not present in later Hebrew texts. This choice helped protect older forms of Scripture that might have otherwise been lost. The process of preserving these texts was slow and careful. Each manuscript was created by hand on animal skin that had been prepared with care. The act of copying was treated as a spiritual duty, not just a task. This meant that every page was handled with respect and attention, allowing the text to survive through long periods of time without being changed in careless ways. When these writings are studied together, rather than as separate pieces, a broader picture begins to form. The ideas connected to the resurrection appear more detailed and connected to earlier traditions. Instead of presenting only the event itself, the Ethiopian texts describe what the resurrection achieved and how it fit into a larger spiritual system. The focus expands beyond a single moment and moves into a wider understanding of its impact. In many Western teachings, the resurrection is seen mainly as proof of divine power and a promise of life after death, which is eternity. It confirms the identity of Jesus and supports the message he delivered. The Ethiopian tradition provides more emphasis on this idea. Drawing from texts like the Book of Enoch and other preserved writings, it connects the resurrection to a deeper structure involving the state of the dead and the order of the unseen world. According to this tradition, the condition of the world before the resurrection was very different. There was a belief that access to heaven had been closed for a long period, reaching back to the earliest stories of human disobedience. The resurrection is described as an event that changed this condition in a direct and powerful way. It did not simply open a path, it removed a barrier that had stood for generations, changing the relationship between the living and the deceased. The descriptions found in the Book of Enoch present this change in a clear and structured form. The return of the dead is shown as a process where different realms release what they hold. The earth, the place of the dead, and the realm of punishment each give back what was placed within them. This image does not rely only on emotion or hope. It follows a system where each part plays a role in a larger sequence of events. When this framework is studied alongside the resurrection accounts, a strong connection appears. The ideas do not stand apart from each other. They fit together in a way that suggests planning and structure. The resurrection becomes more than an isolated miracle. It appears as a key moment within a system that had been described long before. Modern analysis tools highlighted this connection in a striking way. The patterns found across different texts showed a level of alignment that went beyond simple similarity. There is a sense that the texts were built with shared elements, even though they came from different periods and places. The conclusion drawn from this analysis did not depend on belief or tradition. It came from examining how the texts were arranged and how their themes connected. Understanding the resurrection this way shifts its meaning. It becomes an event that activates a larger system rather than standing alone. The earlier writings provide a framework, and the later accounts complete that framework. The connection between them forms a continuous line that runs through the tradition, linking past and present ideas into a single flow. So why does the Ethiopian Bible differ from the Western Bible? Division and unity. A growing group of researchers began to look at the Ethiopian biblical tradition from a different angle. Their focus moved toward the idea that this wider collection of texts might reflect an earlier and more complete stage of Christian belief. This view does not treat the Ethiopian canon as an addition, but as a preservation of something that existed before later decisions shaped the structure of the Bible in other regions. Over time, the Western Church formed its canon through careful selection, keeping certain writings while leaving others behind. This process followed a path shaped by debates, agreements, and the need for unity across large communities. The push to create a clear and consistent collection of sacred writings became stronger in the 2nd century. As Christianity spread, different groups began gathering their own sets of texts. Some accepted certain writings while rejecting others, creating confusion about what should be considered true teaching. One notable figure, Marcion, took a bold step by completely removing the Jewish scriptures and keeping only a small number of Christian writings. His decision caused concern among church leaders and forced them to act. They began working toward defining a more reliable group of texts that reflected what they believed to be the true message. By the 4th century, an important milestone was reached. Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, sent out a letter in which he listed 27 books as the correct collection of the New Testament. This list eventually became widely accepted and is still the same New Testament used by most churches today. The process of forming the biblical canon was influenced by several factors beyond belief alone. Language played a major role, as texts written in Greek were easier to spread throughout the Roman Empire. Geography also mattered, since writings used in key cities and centers of influence were more likely to gain recognition. Church leaders tended to support texts that could be traced back to apostles or early Christian teachers. In addition, writings that were widely read across different regions were seen as more trustworthy than those used only in small or isolated groups. As authority became stronger within church systems, the need for a clear and limited set of texts also grew. The result was a collection that became widely accepted and used by millions. At the same time, other writings that once circulated among early believers were no longer included in the final structure, leading to the idea that the commonly used Bible today reflects a refined version of a larger body of work. Certain themes were reduced, and some texts were left outside the final collection. One line of study focuses on the connection between early Christian belief and the ideas found in Enochic literature. Within this framework, the role of fallen angels, the condition of the earth, and the future of humanity are all linked together. The resurrection becomes a turning point within this wider system. It connects earlier visions to later outcomes, forming a continuous narrative. This interpretation places the life and actions of Jesus within a structure that had already been outlined in older texts. Another group of researchers approaches the subject from a different direction. Their work focuses on how ancient cultures passed down knowledge through speech rather than writing. In these traditions, memory played a central role, and certain patterns helped preserve complex ideas over long periods. Repetition, mirrored structures, and balanced sequences allowed storytellers to maintain accuracy while sharing large amounts of information. These patterns can appear highly organized when written down and studied later. What modern analysis tools detect as structured design may reflect these memory techniques rather than intentional hidden meaning. The presence of these forms across multiple texts may show the strength of oral tradition rather than a single guiding plan. This explanation places the focus on human creativity and the need to preserve knowledge through a shared method of communication that carries ideas across generations. A third perspective sits between these two approaches. It considers the possibility that the Ethiopian canon reflects how a tradition remained stable in one region while changes took place elsewhere. If this perspective is taken seriously, it raises deeper concerns about how and why certain texts were excluded in other traditions. The decision to leave out specific writings may have been based on questions of reliability, but it may also have been influenced by how those texts shaped belief. Writings that reduced the need for structured authority or emphasized direct spiritual connection may not have aligned with the direction of growing institutions. At the same time, there are simpler explanations. The Ethiopian canon may reflect local choices shaped by culture and tradition rather than broader theological goals. The inclusion of additional books may have been influenced by regional history, language, and community practice. Differences in canon could be the result of separation rather than intention. Despite these possibilities, the importance of certain texts is well supported by historical evidence. The Book of Enoch was discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls, showing that it held a strong place in early Jewish thought. Its presence in multiple copies confirms that it was widely read and valued before the rise of Christianity. This places it within the same intellectual world that shaped early believers. The influence of this text continued into early Christian writing. Parts of it appear within the New Testament, showing that its ideas were known and used. Early church thinkers also engaged with its themes, discussing its content in their work. Fragments of the text have been found in several ancient languages, showing how far its reach extended. In Ethiopia, this text remained part of Scripture without interruption. The Church continued to read it, copy it, and preserve it as part of its tradition. For many centuries, monks worked carefully to maintain these writings, using methods that kept them safe from loss. This long effort allowed a broader version of the faith to remain intact while other regions moved in a different direction. Throughout Ethiopia, a huge collection of manuscripts gathered over time within churches and monastic libraries. Experts estimated that around 350,000 Christian manuscripts were spread across nearly 20,000 churches and 8,000 monasteries across the country. Many of these texts have only been partly examined. A significant number still need proper cataloging or careful photographic documentation, while others remain largely unknown beyond the communities where they are kept. In modern times, efforts have been made to preserve ancient biblical manuscripts, especially in Ethiopia. International research teams have partnered with local religious communities to document and protect these valuable texts. Institutions such as the University of Hamburg, the British Library, and the Hill Museum and Manuscript Library have worked together on projects to digitize fragile manuscripts. By photographing these documents, they aim to protect them from damage caused by age, conflict, or environmental conditions, ensuring that this important heritage is not lost. Modern analysis brought renewed attention to this preserved tradition. By examining the full collection of Ethiopian texts as a single body, connections became clearer. The scale and speed of this work made it possible to see patterns that would have taken much longer through manual study. The result did not provide final answers, but it brought forward questions that could not be ignored. What began as a focused study of one event expanded into a deeper examination of the entire structure surrounding it. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.